For those who are new in the space, it's an open forum where everybody can ask questions, any level. To keep it organized, we ask that you raise your hand so we can bring you forward and we can share in the knowledge gain. I have Robert assisting us. We have Robert assisting us in the chat. So if you don't want to ask your question openly, you can put it in the chat. He'll address it, and if need be, I'll bring it up for more conversation. Everything that we do is basically captured and offered back on a set of assets that I created using NowSite. So it's a good way of also of seeing what can be done with the tool for those who are new. I'll put those links in the chat right away. I haven't yet put forward the one from yesterday for those who were here with me. I will be doing it most likely by the end of the day. I was going back over the conversation and felt maybe the need to fine tune the document before rolling it out so that it could better be absorbed. So I focused a little bit on that. Before we go back where we started or we continue, whatever the case, we'll start with the open sessions of questions. If you guys have any questions you want to bring forward for me to answer before I elaborate on anything else we need to or would be interested in going over.
Hey, yes, Virgil.
Hello, Martha.
I took your recommendation and went in to use the Google form to be
Perfect.
able to upload. But the only problem with that is I wasn't able to bring it into my Now site because there was an issue with it having an upload.
An upload. Okay.
Yes.
Do you have
So
do you have the code for the form actually?
well, I did, but I don't have it I don't have it readily accessible, but yes, I did.
Okay. Because
I had
if
to
the
do a
go ahead,
I had to
sorry.
do a workaround.
Mhm.
So I mean, in the future, if there was a way for an upload button to be put into the Now site, I think that would be very advantageous.
Definitely will put that into the recommendations for sure. But I'm still curious because you did mention something very great. First, the Google form, and this is something that was left in the conversation in the air last time that was brought in, the use of Google form and the ability whether or not it could allow for upload. So the form that you used did allow for the client to upload directly to Google, most likely to your drive, I assume, right?
Um, yes.
Okay, because once that is produced, I assume that you were able to have the HTML code uh, from that form from Google, right?
Yes, but it would not
Okay,
allow it to be uploaded into Now site
but now site, okay.
with that code.
Okay. I would okay. The one thing that I would want, if it's possible, because then I want to look at the specific error message and see what exactly could be done with the code. Maybe there is a workaround beyond what you found that we can explore. But definitely, thanks for that update and for that share. I'm definitely going to put that recommendation in for possibly the ability of client uploading form via the website. Again, these are things that I ask and we see if it's possible because it doesn't imply a few layers of programming, but also of data space. So we'll see where it falls, but definitely thank you for the share. And if you can, definitely book a meeting because I would want to see the error code. As far as I'm concerned, if the Google code is published and available to the people, then if you're uploading, it's just an added function because we are just showcasing the frame that Google is using to get that information. It's not even going through our software. So I would want to look at the settings of that code. Maybe there's the answer within. Not that you're not code savvy, but I'm curious to see where what I could find from that. Do you mind actually sending the code via email or drop my email in the chat? That would be something as well. And if I get the code and get the answer, I could reply via email the same way. Works for you as
Yeah,
well?
yes, I can do that. The workaround that I found
Hmm.
was in the Google Forms. There's a place where it says presentation,
Okay.
and in the presentation, you can use a redirect URL. So I had to redirect it. It was just extra steps. I just think it would be just not having to bounce around from one platform to another. It would just be easy to have it, or easier, I think, to have it like in the Now site if available. I mean, there was a workaround, but I had to play around with it a little bit to get it to work. So
Definitely, definitely. It's always better when where there's lesser steps to take.
yes.
One of the things that came to mind the last time we were discussing that is something that I failed to mention. Coming back to the Google Drive as well, because I assume that all these upload of files or content through Google are going to a Google Drive, correct? Because usually, if that is the case, and I think it is, we could actually grab that Google Drive link and put it as part of the button, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
that would become an easy process because the the first stage of the form would be prompting the client for the essential information. Last time it was oh, I forgot. The concept was around giving them a draft of a bill, so uploading a document. So the first stage of the capture form, in this case, would be the question. The qualification question leading to the call to action is register, click on the button, submit, and upload your content. And from that, we bring them into a landing page. Well, thank you. Your information has been received. Use the Google button and upload your content to our form. At that point, we keep them within the platform, one link. We still apply the same strategy. Sometimes it's really about that, right? When we reach out for more tools, yes, we get to have more steps, but in the end, if the shortcut is leading to something that we can directly use and make part of the conversation, it's always an approach. So definitely, if you can book a meeting, I still want
Okay.
to take a look at the code and I want to look at these options with you as well. But keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Everything that we do in the Now site system is very simplified so that if you keep to the basics of the conversation, you can pretty much get it done easily as well.
Yes, I'll be happy to book a meeting so that I can show you the steps that I ran into, and you may have a solution that would be quicker than what I found.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
well,
Always
thank
good to have two brains on one question, one case study. Why not?
absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Keisha, you have your hand up?
Yes.
No question? Yeah.
Real quick question for Martha. Are you using the file uploads section of Google Forms?
It in the forms, there is a place where you can, when you're doing your sections,
Mm-hmm.
where it gives you the option to let that section be for an upload. So yes.
Yes. So once you do that, when you go to responses, where do you have that data going? Because if you click on the top by responses, you have the option to like create a Google Drive where it will keep the information, or um, to an Excel to Google Sheets. So it's in there. So once you have
Well,
the embed code for the Google Doc and you created that correctly, you shouldn't have another problem.
well, I did. I went in and I copied the embed code to
Hmm.
try to go into NowSite to embed it, and it wouldn't work.
Um, and doing this from memory, so I apologize. When you go to Google's embed code, it normally gives you a couple of options. Are you picking up the one that starts with HTTPS?
Yes.
Then yes, I'm with Virgil. I want to see the code. I want to see the error that you're getting.
But you didn't mention something, Keisha, that I also want to take a look at because, yes, we can offer the upload to the form, but we also have to assign it where it's going. And I think it's going to lead back to that drive thing because the only way
Yes.
you can store information on Google would be through their drive option, right? I think the solution
No,
and the
no, no, no. You
shortcut
can
to
store it in Drive or you can store it in Sheets. But if you're collecting actual files, like, I would assume it would have to go to Drive.
no, it's
Like that,
drive. For
that's
Sheets,
a
for
feature
Sheets, it's the Google
I
Sheet,
only
it's
know
data
about
and such.
because I was
Right.
helping Jackie with that a few minutes ago. But the only reason I know that you can do the file uploads is because again, I was researching it for her, and I know that you can upload PDFs, spreadsheets, documents, presentations, drawings, so but I
I got it.
also know that under the responses section, you have to give it a location to store that data.
Definitely. That
Okay.
is everything that I want to hear more about. Keisha, you and me meeting. Definitely. You're downloading stuff. I want information too. It's a fair trade. You and me meeting too. Definitely. There's always a solution. I think it comes down to that. It's a matter of
Drop your link.
One.
I'll set it now.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm gonna do. Oh, I'm gonna send it to you via email there. So coming back to what I said, very important. There's always a way, a solution. The one thing is try to keep it as much as possible simple for the end user and for yourself, and always consider the end result, because it's the end result that we want to go to, that sometimes we have to keep in perspective. How many steps do we really need to take to go to that end result? If it's a link that we end up having to assign to the Google form for it to have a location, then that link can be used through the NowSite interface. How can we integrate it in our approach, in our conversation? So definitely good food for thought. Thank you for the share, both. That was enlightening, and I actually am curious to see the rest. Anything else? Anybody else before we go into the next phase? Any questions? Any share comments? Okay, so I guess more will come as we proceed. Yesterday, for those who weren't here, we basically covered the conversation around the concept of segmentation and how it applies within NowSite, how it echoes across different part of the tool that we're using. I'm going to do a quick recap starting from the end. So that way we can also segue into one of the points that were important that we left on. Robert touched on it, the content, the structure of each email, right? Because what we're discussing here in the end is the best strategy to get the right engagement depending on where we are in the segment, right? General understanding that we left off with is that ideally in the now site environment and overall to simplify the way we work, we want to consider having three type of list in accord to the different stage of interaction that we will be going through with each prospects. The acquisition list, where we will put the general pool of prospect that we're considering, that we are engaging with, to get them to opt in into a first stage conversion. And that basically will bring about the strategy that will lead them to the second list, the conversion list, where we're actively engaging with these new clients that have opt-in and bring them to the onboarding phase through exchanges. And in the end, these prospect, these clients, these newfound customers will be migrated to a retention list where we basically have a long-term engagement process, which is also meant to reverse the polarity in the conversation. In the retention phase, we are giving enough technically of information and supporting advice to the clientele through conversation to have them request when needed further interaction, further content. We put them in the engagement side of the relationship. As a general now site embedded rule, and I don't want to call it a limitation because it has its value as we came to understand it throughout the process. As a general rule within now site, we operate with the value of 500. The acquisition list are meant eventually to grow beyond the amount of 500, as we will be accumulating people in those lists over time until they react one way or another on subscribing to the conversation or opting into that first stage of conversation or conversion. The conversion list technically will be generally in the range of 500 under. Why? Because it's that period where we're dynamically exchanging with the client, getting them onboarded, and the onboarding phase technically doesn't span forever. It spans for a certain amount of time, and then they go into a retention cycle where they're following basically a long-term process. Of course, these strategy will impact the email sequence as well. Since these are built-in rule, they have an impact on the actual email rollout. Okay. And speaking of the rule, coming back to that conversation, the one thing to understand is that when we are using our list, when they are at 500 and under, as we generally all understand, when we're rolling out an email campaign, the sequence that we have set forward in terms of days will be met. Since the limitation that we are set in or that are set in or imposed upon us are 500 on a daily basis for a total amount of 15,000 weekly per email connected, per email synced. Of course, we are subject by default to the provider's rule. So if you have an email that is from a provider that allows you for more volume, these will be shifted in your favor. But generally, these amounts are what you want to consider working with because it allows you to monitor the work a lot easier, right? Coming back to these email sequence and the rule that we are discussing, whenever you have a sequence of email that is assigned to a list, you have to consider the volume of contact in the list versus the numbers of email in the sequence. Why? Because that will impact the rollout. Coming back again to that conversation, uh, when the list is under 500, the rollout works as we have put it forward. When the list is over 500, then what the AI will start doing, since it is bound by these daily limits of 500, it will cover your list segment by segment, meaning 500 at a time in this case. The term segmentation can be used all over the place. It has to do with breaking apart or slicing apart a bigger whole. So your list basically, in an example where it has 2,000 list or 2,000 contact in that list, when the AI looks at the list, it will take that overall number divided by or the understanding that you should have to plan out your email or understand the rollout of that set campaign for a list that is over 500 is that the AI will take that number. Well, you will take that number divided by 500 and understand that that will be the numbers of days that the AI will need or that you will need to factor in the rollout between each one of these emails. Why? Simply put, the AI will go first 500 first day, will wait or will try to get the green light from the provider. And this is when, if you guys are looking at the connected email to these sequence, you will see at one point these back and forth within that inbox where we are letting you know that you have reached your account limit. Again, this is not a system error or failure. It's robots talking and trying to get permission until the next cycle is open. So X number of people in a contact list divided by 500 is the amount of days that you will have to factor in by default in between these sequence, which again works in our advantage. Why? Simply put, when we're looking at numbers and percentages, right? Because everything that we do in volume we do expect maximum return, but maximum return is never 100%, meaning that if I send out 500 emails, I don't expect 500 people to start coming back to me. This is what I would want, or this is what I would expect to happen in a retention list. Why? We're actively engaging them and they have actively engaged us. So if they receive an email call to action, then we expect a very high rate of response at that stage. But here we're talking about the initial rollout or the acquisition phases. And technically, 15% is what we generally expect as a maximum return for a cold email campaign. And these will shrivel down, thus the idea of drip campaign. The first percentage, which is 1,500 for 15,000 emails sent out monthly, will drip down to 2,250 people that will potentially open this email. And that 2,250 people will be slapped again on a 15% probability of these people actually opting in, meaning clicking on something and going to another phase of offering. Thus, the idea also coming back to what we came in discussing, the idea of limiting the amount of steps for the attended audience that we want to engage. The easier it is for them to do it, the easier it is for us to track, and the easier it is to get results out of that. Okay, and this is an idea or something to keep in mind when you're trying to scale your approach, right? Talking about scaling, we discussed the ideal length of the sequence depending on where we are. Focusing on what matters the first, I think the conversion, the acquisition, since the conversion will sometimes or will most of the time be subject to our own onboarding process or the onboarding process of the opportunity that we're tied to. Very important as well in this conversation about list and CRM or emailing that we also factor in the outside email tied to our opportunity each time, which is what we are offering technically as conversion most of the time in the first series of emails that we're sending. The call to action, the content, which we will come back and try to elaborate for the next part. How do we structure that? Because in the end, this is what we're discussing. What is the content within each one of these email campaigns, targeting each one of these segment of interaction that we have created or that we are called to create. Okay, so this is important. Scale your conversation in a sense that at least at the beginning, you want to be agile enough to be able to go through a certain amount of cycles of repetition for a same campaign. Why the first time that we're going to run it, we're going to get results that we're going to look at and we're going to come back and address for each one of these emails. Right? I recommend 5. I am offering 5. Yesterday, Robert put forward the concept of going beyond, which is true. But when you reach that stage, it means that cycles of optimization and reviews after cycles, you have created the maximum impactful email conversation each time for each one of these sequence. So now you can actually map out the journey of your prospect, understanding or trying to predict actually which email in the sequence will get them to opt in to the next stage. Because again, when a prospect is in the acquisition list, he's faced with 2 options: unsubscribe or opt in, because I will continually be trying to probe you in different ways for the same result. So again, the idea of having an email that is short allows you to reshape the conversation, not just in strategy, but also in content, in presentation, in full each time. Let's think about the customer impact. If I receive the same email over and over and over, at one point I will unsubscribe. There is no novelty, there's no impact, there's no value, right? So keeping that first sequence short has a lot of value. Also, in terms of what we're discussing, our acquisition list will grow over time to well beyond the range of the thousands. So we'll have to factor in each time these X times 500 amount of days in between, right? So the bigger the list, the longer the email sequence, the longer the turnaround. right? So at the beginning, keep that in mind. If you are segmenting your acquisition list, keep in mind, okay, how many people tops I want to put in that to run this campaign a number of times before I add more or shift gears, right? When you're trying to find your flow before you get to that steady ironclad email sequence that you can even offer directly as a roadmap to success to anybody that you're onboarding. You want to go through these testing phases yourself. Okay, so very important in that matter to factor that in and all that converse. What?
Good afternoon. How may I help you?
Oh, somebody left their microphone on. Not sure what
Got
is
you.
it. Okay.
I got you.
Perfect. So the all that concept was really something that you want to keep in mind uh, when you are approaching this space, when you're approaching the conversation around your list, when you are talking about your process. Question? Perfect. If they are, we will address them as they come. One of the things that I think it's important for us to now dive into, since we're looking at email and we're talking about the impact of conversation, is actually how we structure these messages, right? So here from the account, I'm just going to start a new campaign and we're going to look at what we are getting as a template and where we would want to start paying attention to details in these templates or these messages that we're creating. Why? Because they'll determine, as Robert mentioned, the percentage rate that people will choose to engage, right? What makes an email appealing to you? And this is a question often that I ask myself or bring my clients in meeting to ask themselves when we're crafting or talking about the subject of emails. Bring back the conversation to you. Ideally, or as it is, general rule, we target people in our likeness. So it would be natural to think that they would react the same way if we received conversation, we would react the same way as they would to that content, right? So it's always important to put that in perspective, right? And beyond that, if you're going outside your niche or going outside the persona that you are, then to start looking at these personality analysis that you're getting to understand also the profile customer that you have with in front of you, right? Some might need more guidance, some might need more detail, some might need less conversation. Some others won't only will only react, for example, to video content. I'm going to use this workshop, for example, and we're going to launch it on a spin and start looking at what we receive, how also we address the scheduling at the same time, the mechanics of it, but also the structure of each message. While the AI is crafting, any questions on what it is doing? An error. Why? Let me just refresh. While I'm doing this, any questions on what we've covered, segmentation, on what you have experienced, any share pushbacks?
No, but I can add because some people will run into this and maybe they might not know how to deal with it. If it's your first time emailing and you send off to a list, and for some reason you get an email back that says, "Oh my God, this was not deliverable," it's okay. Grab that email, go into the section, find the email, and just delete it.
That's it. Sometimes, yes, we fall into panic. There's many factors. Remember that when we're getting information, we might be getting information that the client offered but have not updated. But it's a trail. If the profile that we're looking at is interesting, even an outdated message email can be used in ways to track down a person. I don't even remember the access code that I used to open my initial Facebook. That email is in the ether. There's no personality or no exchange, but it's there and tied to my persona. So things like that are important to factor in. Go ahead, Keisha.
Another thing people need to know about when they're first starting to send out email campaigns. If it's a brand new email account, you want to first send emails to yourself and some other people you know to kind of warm up that email. Otherwise, Google will block you as a spam account.
Absolutely. And it falls into that rhythm that is set in now site, warming up the account. Because, of course, if you open an account and from zero, it goes to thousands of rollouts constantly being worked, Google is going to ask questions. It's going to interfere with the activity to force you to justify yourself.
Hmm.
Scrutiny, right? So definitely, it is normal. It's expected, and it's also part of our process, right? Ideally, when we start out something new, we want to share it with our friends, our teammate, to get that feedback,
Yeah,
and
but
that is also part of
a lot of
that.
folks, when you're starting out new, they don't know. Like folks
Yes.
like us that are constantly using it, we know to do that. But somebody who's absolutely new to email campaigns, especially if they're starting a new business or whatever, they just started this account, they need to know that they need to go ahead and send it to a couple of people and get them to reply. Even like I have 9 email accounts. So I will just send it to all my email accounts and reply back. I play video games. Don't judge me.
Good
I get
tips.
points for referring a new person, and I don't like spamming people, so I send it to myself 9 times. Worth a
There
credit.
you go. Well,
Extra 300 coins doesn't bother me. Worth a bit.
if you're in the end have created multiple marketing or assets that you can use in different ways, then use them to benefit yourself. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But the concept is true. Warm up your asset because it's relying on outside providers, rules, and scrutiny. Go ahead, Shannon.
I'm sorry. I think Keisha just answered my question. I was going to ask is when you send out those warm-ups, is it important to get the people to open them or reply to them?
Absolutely.
So
Right. It's actually that is important, right? Making sure that they see the response because now it's actually a valid interactive conversation. It also helps when people go to spam. It went to spam, they move it back from spam to the inbox. These type of things, the algorithm will register as well, right? So generally in good practice, we should always adhere to that advice. It's part of the process if we think about it anyways because uh, for me sometimes unless you're the type to want to burn steps, you gradually will come into this curve because you start the opportunity. You're okay. What am I doing here? Even if you don't choose to send to friends and family, you will start very slowly the process at trying to find people to send it to as live exercise. That has been for me the general curve for people that are very new to the space. There's the fear of the tool. There's the fear of mistake. The coaching approach that I came to actually use with that is telling them that, well, the only bad marketing is no marketing, right? So if you're not doing anything, you can't get any feedback anyways, right?
and
So
if you
gradually
get
people,
I'm sorry, and if you've got set like Keisha was saying, she's got several accounts. So if you own several Gmail accounts, they won't recognize that as you replying to yourself or anything like that. Okay.
well,
I
it
haven't seen that.
Okay.
well, it depends because this is the idea also. Yes. Um, in regards to what you're saying, you can open many accounts and they will track the IP from which the accounts are being opened, right? Okay. But when you consider a household, large families, large people, it's not uncommon to have people using the same IP address for the same computer with different emails and different interests there, right? So it's not uncommon to see that. So it's not something I think that would be flagged as a bad habit or behavior. I don't think so.
The reason, well, I
At
mean, the
least,
kind of reason I ask you, even though they're in the same household, so if I've got 4 or 5 Gmail accounts, whenever I register them, I put my first and last name as the person registering them. So that's why I was curious about that.
well, but you still will. Okay. Again, me, also, I haven't came into any issues with that, and I do have a
Okay,
couple of emails as well.
cool.
So I doubt that it has an impact. If it is, we'll get to see this. We'll keep our eyes peeled and our ears to the market. And we actually are. I might do a research on that and see. Question. Why not?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. So now the most important thing, go ahead, Keisha.
The other option is use your teammates. If you're in some sort of network marketing, you have a team, just let them know you're going to send them all an email, just respond back to it. Even if it's just with a dot, just respond to it.
Right.
So, because I do need to make a correction. I have 9 email accounts, but I also use a variation of my name on each one. So it
Uh,
doesn't say, oh, only my business account say Keisha James. Everything else can say anything from James to Jacobs or my middle name or, you know, a something in between. So
you can,
that way
yeah,
I know which one. For marketing purposes, I know which one I use for
there's
what.
there's one thing anyways that I notice coming back to that is they're getting a lot more tighter on their security process because now when you're trying to, at least this is one of the things that I run into. I'm not sure if anybody has ran into that issue creating a new Gmail account. At one point they will ask you to assign a telephone number to that account, and that telephone number has a limited amount of Gmail account that it can create. So they are tracking these things as well, right? You can get around the fact of the different name combinations, but then they'll get you most likely on the telephone number at one point for authentication and such. Anyways, the idea is that you want to start with one email, and if need be, by the time you reach full momentum on what we are discussing, because remember, all these email conversation have to do with a volume that we reach for, strive for, that we should come to when we're ready to handle, right? So let's start with one email, run that, and then when we gradually come to these tiers of conversation, naturally, we'll have already embedded knowledge and workarounds for that level up. Good? Perfect. So the content, because everything, again, sometimes we have a lot of conversation around the most important thing, that content, that email, right? Because the maximum engagement we get from the first email simplifies all this conversation around the amount of emails that we need to send or otherwise, right? So very important. One of the things I think, um, what do you think is the most important thing uh, when you're looking at this interface? Not for you, but for the user when receiving this email. What is
Subject.
the most important thing? Somebody had it right? The subject.
Subject.
Absolutely. Because again, coming back to bring this to a personal level, when I open my email, I love marketing and I've subscribed to many things and there's many things coming through. And I expect that every day I open my email. The way I decide which email to open usually starts with the subject, then the sender, right? So very important, the idea of what you should be, especially taking care of crafting in these subject. And there's a reason for that. We have chosen to give you the AI for support. Okay. Have fun with these things because here, for example, there's a simple trick that I did last time, and I I don't even call it a trick. I call it an actual use of the tool, right? When you open your CRM here, you have a title, you want to work on a sequence. There's different ways, again, of creating an email sequence as we discussed previously. You can start outside of this space using your My Chat AI, having it draft a sequence of email so that you can actually look at the evolution of the content before you start copying and pasting in this space where it matters, right? So you can do this part, which is a great way I would recommend to actually start looking at planning your first acquisition email. Why? Because it allows you to see the overall journey of your 5 emails and what call to action you would want to place therein, right? Here, you can freely come in when you are on the discovering path, or that you have more of an expert step-by-step process that you're applying, right? Again, even if you're not an expert, there's a step-by-step process to follow. Our emails are following, again, our sales flow, building rapport, presenting, following up, booking a meeting, closing the sale, creating the urgency or the relationship, the ongoing relationship, right? And already these objectives should, in your mind, start to line up with specific call to actions, right? If the idea or the objective in this text right now is to book a meeting, then I know what call to action I'm putting forward there. My calendar, my Zoom link, or whatnot, right? So I know that, for example, in my 5 email sequence, the fourth will be heavily talking about that subject, right? So even if you're not an expert, if you're following our sales flow, you're on point. Build the rapport is what I'm looking for. The tone of the conversation is so important in an email. When you're reading conversation, you are in your head with this email. It speaks even more directly to your mind and your heart, right? So the tone of the conversation should always be considered. And for me, for example, life is full of colors. So I usually will try to mix my tone. Why? It's the reflection of my personality. You can see I'm a little agitated, not out of line, intense, excited, and such, right? So I'll mix my conversation. Why not? Right? The language is up to the ear of the audience that you're targeting. And already here, you can start putting in your tags, right? If we're looking at building a personal relationship, then these are tools that we're going to start taking in account when we sign our emails. Transparency, trust, right? Especially at connection, it's important to factor those in, right? So here, back to the conversation around using the tool for all these points that we're trying to create, or these uh, content that we're trying to draft for the subject line. Here, I'll say, give me 5 versions this subject line. And in this space, everybody is a great writer. I don't even need to worry about my spelling, about mistakes. All I need to worry about is our intention and clarity in what I'm trying to tell or get the AI to do. All right. So these are options that you have. These are tools that is here. And this is the importance of a simple step like that, the impact of the subject line. Right? So always keep that in mind. Pay special attention to the subject line. Again, when in doubt, make sure that it lines up with the objective, the overall objective of the conversation. Right here, elevate your marketing with the NowSite tool, unlock brand potential, transform your digital strategy, discover the future. Let me increase this. And from what you see in the screen, drop a number to see where the scoring goes. Who sees one of these as the first ideal line for a subject, targeting somebody that has an interest in marketing, trying to invite them into this space? I want to see where your minds are. Is it one? Is it two? Is it three? Robert, from what you're seeing in the chat, where is the poll taking us? I see two.
I responded too. I haven't seen anybody chat there.
Yeah. So unlock your
Got
brand
a 4 from
potential with
Lori.
expert, or discover the future of marketing with NowSite AI.
I think you could go even deeper than that, obviously.
Absolutely. My choice would actually be the fifth one, because it's not about the tool. It's not about me. It's about the client. Boost your growth, right? Interest, intention, call to action. That is going to be our next song. It falls in line with everything that we're doing: acquisition, conversion, retention. It falls in line with the what, the who, the how. They're all sister terms. The interest is what gets the acquisition going. I see this, I'm interested. Boost your growth. We're talking about me. We're talking about my business. We're talking about a sensitive subject, my dime. All right. So right there, you have me at hello. Who are you? Well, what tools? Cutting edge tools, right? So keep that in mind. What is the conversation? This is one part of the exercise where you really want to change seats. Put yourself in the audience seats. What would they want to hear? Since you know your product, you know the part of it that would solicitate their interest. All right. So keep that in mind. If I open this, boost your growth with NowSite cutting edge tool in the title, unlock the digital marketing potential, it's in line with what we are about to discover. Okay. So keep that in mind. That's a simple format. And this applies for everything that you're doing, whether it's in the email conversation or on a marketing asset or on a post. Interest, intention, call to action. Interest is targeting is around the what. The intention are driven towards the who, and the call to actions are the how. Interest, intention, call to action. What, who, how. Acquisition, conversion, retention. Sometimes people are a little bit taken by the fact that I can respond quickly to a certain amount of question through active listening. Well, it's based on this equation. I'm constantly looking at these factors. What are we talking about? Who are we talking to? How is this being put forward? What are the acquisition channels? Or what is the acquisition target? Or how are we converting? What is the retention process? How are we getting people interested? Right? What are the intentions that are put forward? And how are people clearly being pushed for action? It happens very fast. It's the algorithm. But once you keep that in mind, right, it's a little bit like reading the code of the matrix. You crack the algorithm. This is how it works. This is how you work. Basically, this is how we work. If you don't get my interest in line, you will never get my time. If your intentions are not clear to me, forget about getting my dime. And if you want to get me to get something done, then you really have to push my right buttons. Right? These are important. Keep that in mind. So when you're crafting that, it should drive basically where you're going. For the rest, very simple tools to craft the content. I think one of the most important one that we should always keep in mind, or two of the most important one that we should always keep in mind to use when possible, are the video and the button. Right? Let's a simple strategy or simple navigation, putting ourselves in the seat of the recipient. You got me at hello. I'm curious. I'm going to open up this. Okay. I see where you're taking me. You want to give me a marketing tool, a digital marketing tool. I'm going to read your intentions. And if everything is right, I'm going to click on this button for the next stage. Right? This is the mechanic that is being put before us, right? And there's a lot that can be done. Let's try to shift things. For example, if instead of giving me a message, you come in with a video, then you have me for a cycle of listening, right? Again, am I going to send you an hour video the first time we get to meet? That's not going to work in my favor, right? Oh, sorry, I went offline there. I was going for my links just to get a video there or a link. So think about that when you are using or deciding on the format of this. Let me get a video in here and then we'll move on to the next step. And keep that in mind. If I have a video that has a strong call to action therein at the end, then right after, I'm not going to give you a text to read. I'm going to go directly for a call to action right there. right? Often enough, we're asking or we're expecting a video to be sent or integrated as part of as the second step of our funnel, right? And that is exactly what the email is. Could be a second step, a follow-up step to the capture of contact on a marketing asset. Go ahead, Keisha.
Are we able, I know for a little while, Google was making it difficult to send videos through emails. I was getting around it using embed codes from Canva, but not through NowSite. Can
You
we
were
use
able.
embed codes in the emails in what's in
No, no. Actually, I was about to ask that question when you said you were using an embed, because as far as now site goes, you cannot embed content in those emails. Content embedding content is very touchy. Why? You're creating a Trojan space.
Mhm.
If I can modify the code of the email, then I can embed things that can be harmful to the user. Even if they're not harmful, understand that Google will see this, flag it, block it. Okay,
Yes.
so we are not able to do so. As far as I understand, there was an issue, yes, at one point, but it has been resolved with YouTube, but not Vimeo, or it was an issue with Vimeo. But as far as I mainly use YouTube. Give it a try if you're having an issue with Vimeo. Well, actually, I think we'll be able to test it out since I do have some Vimeo emails. I'm going to send that myself and see if it comes through. Why not? But the importance again of considering your the structure of your email is now before you, right? Starting with the conversation at the gate, the subject line, and understanding, okay, what can I do with the content within to keep driving these three things in: the interest, the intentions, and the call to actions. Clear for everybody? Okay. So once you have, and one of the things, again, that came to pass in our conversation about choices, right? When we're building an email campaign, just like when we're creating a marketing asset, a website, the idea of buttons, giving them things to click, action, call to action is right there, right? So keep in mind that you're monitoring your call to action. So if I have one email sending you in too many directions, first, it's too many choices for the client, so not a clear path to follow, less impulse to the interest that is created, right? That's one thing. And it's more work for you to track what email is converting and when, right? Mainly each email should have, again, the two main goals of any marketing asset, right? Connection. So if I already have your email and I'm sending you conversation, you may have want to talk about it. There has to be a clear line back to me. Hence your digital card, and in having that digital card as part of every one of your email is a great way of using that marketing asset for that connection. And then the conversion, the asset, the list, the offer that I want you to opt in, at least as a first stage, to get you out of this acquisition list into the conversion list, right? So these call to actions within those emails, after emails in our sequence over time, are quantified with purpose, right? I When I'm sending that email and it takes 4 days to roll out to my 2000 list, then if I know that that first email is offering one of two choices: book a meeting to get more value from what you just saw, and let's build trust through connection, that connection. Or if you like what you saw, why wait? Opt in, and I will meet you for the next round. Obviously, conversion again, it's that's time and space in the process where we're very agile with the client's time, engagement, connection. It's the sweet time, it's the onboarding time. It's important why we're setting them up for the retention, because once the onboarding cycle is complete, we will either manually or have them when you're ready, when you have cleared the first level onboarding and you're ready for more, this is where you go. And then I can track the prospect journey across my 3 list and understanding the conversation that is going through, the call to action, the overall prospect journey. Make sense? Perfect, perfect. I am working on finalizing the presentation. Also, I'm going to building a course covering general conversation around this notion of segmentation, how it applies across different things that we're doing on NowSite. And for everybody, new users and expert leaders, I'm trying to craft this exercise that adheres to both conversation path and that will allow you to optimize or at least make sure that you're starting the right way every time you're considering an email campaign. And that also forces you to line every other one of your ducks, your marketing assets, your client list, your prospect journey, your overall arching plan. Gives you clarity. Make sense? Perfect, perfect. The content most likely will be available for everybody in their respectful time zone by tomorrow. I'm just going to finalize the last bits and pieces of it, make sure that I spell check myself properly and that I'm not inviting terms that could lead to conversation or confusion within NowSite. Go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, Virgil, the training and stuff you were just showing, how I see that the little tab that you got went to with the microphone. Do I have to get added to like a certain team to find that, or what?
Oh yeah. It's I'm gonna give you the link. It's our link to the team. Wait me a second here. Here, I make the content available on the team and also on the Now Site newsletter. And also, it has references to the course library. So, but go to the team, make sure that you're there, and you'll see the menu will allow you to guide yourself through the how-to session recaps, the videos, the practical exercises, the courses, and such. I don't have yet an AI. Eventually, I will get one, so that way you'll be able to interact with it. But I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. I'll
Gotta
see.
run, Virgil. Everyone have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. We'll see you Tuesday.
Perfect. Again, it was
Okay.
a pleasure and looking forward for the next session with you. If anything, you have my email in the chat, Virgil at now.site, sorry, send me questions. I can't guarantee that I'll reply, but at least I'll keep in mind what is being put forward and try to carry over to the higher tiers for changes, update, just like Robert got us. Confirmation that we will be seeing soon our search list option. Good for everybody?
Yep. I found what
Mm,
you sent me. I thought it was on a different tab, so I
uh,
found it. Thank you.
Perfect. Always a pleasure. And see you soon all here or in meetings. Have a great rest of the week.
Yeah,
You
thank you.
all as well.
Thanks.